years. So this, I let the heel touch, rotate it in till it cuts. And what I'm looking for is those type of shavings, those little wispy, sheared shavings like so. The tool has to be sharp, your technique has to be good, but that's what I'm looking for. Those little wispy shavings. And this tool is a refining tool, not a bulk removal tool. You've done the major shaping with the bowl gouge. The reason I use this is because the majority of my woods are very hard that I use, and the deep fluted gouge can grab a little more. So I like the shallower gouge section to refine it. This tool is pretty new, so when it's a long way over the rest, you get a little bit of vibration to it. Okay. And at that, we now need to refine this a little more. You've got to move your rest around into there. Pull that up to the largest diameter. I'm looking at the shape I'm creating here, not down here. You only look at the tool when you apply it to the work. Once you've done that, you're looking at what you're doing up there. It's the shape you're looking for. Okay. Right. Just one little couple there. Just get rid of that. It feels pretty good. It isn't something that I feel the need to add the oil to. It's okay. Anything that's in there would sand out if I was going to sand, which I'm not. This is coming straight off the tool. Alan can take it home and finish it, but he doesn't like mulch.
Oh, I like them all right, as long as it's really easy to turn.
Okay, so now I'm going to use the short side of that gouge to come back to blend that together. It's a little bit more difficult having a short bevel angle on there. I have some of these at home, so they're ground the same both sides, and it's more manipulable then. An instant like this, because I haven't got as much bearing of that tool on there, what I'll often do is to take the shear scraper in a situation like that. This means that there's no bevel support. This tool here is a diamond-shaped shear scraper, and I'll shear scrape just with this part of the blade or that part of the blade in the lower section. I don't really need to do much, but if I do, this is a tool that you get a lot of control with. And if you can't do it with the gouge, then this comes into it. I was interested to know that this tool is one that Al Sturt likes a great deal. Al's a big lover of this tool, and he didn't know that I designed it, but I did back in the 90s. But Al uses this quite a lot. He just finds it a very good tool to do a lot of his flat pieces. But you can see the sort of shavings we're getting off with that. These tools are straight off the grinder of a 60 grit wheel. I use the burr from the 60 grit wheel on all my tools. The only time I go normally on the final wheels, i.e. 100 grit or 80 grit wheel, is on skew chisels and scrapers that I'm going to use on very dense woods where the burr will grab more. So I go on to a finer grit, if you like, so it isn't so aggressive. There's just one little high spot there which I don't like. Whoops, wrong tool, which I'll just pull. It's just there, I can feel it. There it is. Okay, I'm worrying into shape now rather than cutting into shape. Alright. Now I don't know whether you folk want to take a natural break or whether you want me to just carry on. You're the deciders of that. Nobody says anything. I'm carrying on. You don't say anything. I'm going. I'm carrying on. Carrying on. I can't break after half an hour. I break after about 4 hours. Okay. Alright, we're done. That's the outside done. Now we come to refine this out. I will make this bowl probably around 1/4 of an inch wall thickness, if you will. I'll cut come in here now with the 3/8 bowl gouge and thin this down. Now because this is in curve, I've got to push out into the fullness of the curve here. At the moment, I'm just thinning this down, and now I'm starting to push out there. If you know how to rub the bevel of a tool, you can do it one-handed. One of my good friends at home risked life, well, he risked his manhood, if you like. He did it without using his hands at all, with this tool down here. He was probably just getting on a few years, but you know. Anyway, there you go. I would never do that, but he did. So anyway, that was just to show how simple. Alright, so we're now starting to drive this out and getting a consistent wall thickness in here. I'm still probably about 3/8 thick at the moment. We'll just take a look. I'm pretty consistent now through there, down to the fullness of the curve here. So at that stage, I'll thin it down a little more. How thick? I'm just about 5/16, I suppose, something like that, wall thickness. This one wouldn't be an ultra thin one because it's a reasonably utilitarian shape actually. It is 5/16 at the moment. I will just thin this down a little bit more. 3/8 gouge again, up on edge to make the initial cut move. Because this wood's got a lot of wormholes in it. Okay, so what we're doing here, we've probably got this pretty much resolved. Check that wall thickness, it's pretty consistent I believe. Your fingers become calipers after a while if you do enough of this. You don't really, you just run your fingers and find out where it is. At this point in time, if I wasn't happy with the shape within there, this is where I would come in with the scraper. And the scraper these days, a few years ago I wouldn't have done this. If you'd have seen me turn 15 years ago, I would have taken my scraper, whether it be this one or a smaller one, and I'd put it flat on the rest here and scraped it flat horizontal there, if you will, 10-15 degrees out of the vertical, flat on the rest. I don't do that these days. I shear cut so the scraper is up at 45 degrees. It gives less resistance to the cut and doesn't stand the grain up as much on the edge when you're directly opposed to the axis. This one I will use a smaller one to do this, so you don't get as much weight and resistance in there. I brought the rest further away because these scrapers, or this particular one, has a radius on here. It's designed to be a shear scraper, so it runs on the rest without grabbing. If it's a square corner, round that off, so to speak. This is manufactured like this. Now I normally, when I use the scraper, is to drop the speed of the lathe down a little, which I've just done. The index finger is on the blade here. The handle of the tool is up my forearm on the inside there. So I took it up at 45 degrees and then pushed from the top down to blend any ripples out of it, so to speak. So I'm into there, and this hand automatically cuts the piece. I'm only working with one hand mostly. So I come into here, like so, and any ripples that were there from the gouge, hopefully you get a little bit of vibration there, which means you're introducing pressure into it. Now just there, I'm going to leave that leading corner in there, just soften the opening there, a little bit of vibration through here. I suspect some of that is due to the structure of the wood. Normally they don't do that. Okay. Alright, we're there. Now I've got further in. I'm perfectly alright there. I'm seeing what I'm getting. Okay. I would prefer to do all this with the bowl gouge and I need to have done this, but I just wanted to show that technique, if you will. Okay, and that, the quality off the scraper is never quite as good as it is off the gouge, basically. So this is where, if you had your gouge, there is a little bit of woolliness down there. This is where you would apply the oil to it and just shear it again, and you would get a better surface finish. In fact, we've got some mineral oil here, so I'm just going to put some on there. It isn't that bad, it would stand out, but just for the hell of it, I'll do it from the technique point of view, the sort of things that I would do with these things. I'm just trying to cover as many of the different aspects and many of the different ways I deal with any problems that come my way. So I'm just applying that into the offending area. Not all over it, I'm just doing it where that grain is a little bit terry or rough, so to speak. On the other, it should be dead opposite, which it is. So just in that other area, I'll just soften it. And normally, this will give us the 90% sort of improvement. There was very little roughness in the grain. And on a shape like this, from a sanding point of view, I would sand this with the Velcro 3-inch pads, if you like, the soft pads of the 3-inch Velcro. The ones I use are always the Australian ones, the Skilton ones, which I consider to be the best on the market. That's what I always use, the Tim Skilton ones. And then I would power sand in here. But I'd normally, something like this, sand with about 120 grit as the coarsest grit, and through the grits. Go down to about 400 power sanding, then liberally coat this either with wax or oil and sand by hand with silicon carbide paper, 400 or 500 grit paper, to sand that down smoothly. And then apply whatever polish coat is going to do it. In a piece like this, now I put the mineral oil on it, I choose to finish on this piece with the dangerous. That's what I would put on here. The nature of the wood effect, I believe that would be compatible. It's a little bit of vibration through there. Okay. I'm through now. Alright. Let's just stop the lathe. There's a little bit, but it's very little. It would just sand out anything that's there, but it's pretty sandable. It wouldn't take much to get rid of that. So at this stage, I'm going to go to rope the rest of the shape. I'll just check the depth there. Okay. And that can go a little deeper. I'm just going to make this, bring that back a minute, because I've got that hole from the drill in the bottom there, just showing still. I've still got about ½ an inch in the bottom there to take out. So I'll do that. I'll get my depth of that hole in there. Right. I'll just go in here, pick the lathe speed up, just resolve the depth in here. Alright. So, right, I'll take another 1/4 inch or so out of there. This will the depth. And what I will just briefly do in a moment, I'll just need to touch more. Okay. What I'll just back up and say to you is the shape of this piece and the way you manipulate the tool within. When I make this entry cut here, as I said to you, the flute is virtually vertical when I make that cut. And as I push down there, I rotate that gouge round. Eventually I haven't got there yet. And then I open it up, and in the finish it starts to cut on the back rim. So it's gone from 10 degrees out of the vertical to 10 degrees out of the horizontal. And you do it automatically. You rotate that tool in your hand. And the smoother you are in all the cuts, it makes life so much more difficult or easy. It's about confidence. It's just doing it, being at the lathe, just gaining that confidence so you're in total control of the tool, basically.